Hi everybody and welcome to today's proficiency lesson in relation to the Cambridge exam, and your level should be very good, so you should understand me when I speak, so that is good. I don't have to worry too much. Today we're going to focus on the use of English exercise 1 in particular. This is the second lesson. Every week I want to give a free lesson for the public on Facebook Live for people preparing for the proficiency exam or people with an interest to reach C2 proficiency level. Last week in my first lesson I explained every part of the exam, and today we begin the exercises and we start with the use of English section and the first exercise. So just to recap and to remind you that the first exercise of the use of English is a text from a newspaper, a text from a magazine, a journal, or a typical article, and we have multiple choice options for I think 8 questions, 8 spaces. So you can see here that this is the first example, and the story is in relation to soap operas. A soap opera is like a telenovela. It's a program that we watch on the television every week, and this is the title of the exercise. On the right, you have all the options. You have 8 questions, and you have multiple choice A, B, C, and D. The big difference between the proficiency and the other exams, such as the first certificate and the advanced certificate, is in the proficiency, the options are more difficult. The advanced, the options are difficult. In the first certificate, I think the answer is more obvious, but in the proficiency exam, these options are very, very similar, and this will create lots of challenges for you doing this exam. But there is a logical answer, and there usually is a right, correct answer, and that is our job to find the correct answer. So this is the lesson for today. I'm going to explain this exercise to you. Of course, you probably know already how to do this, but I can just give you some extra tips or maybe some advice that might help you in your preparation. So let's begin. And also after this first exercise, I have a second part 1 exercise to practice as well. Finding material is difficult online, but I have found one book that I downloaded as a PDF, and I will use that book during this course as well. This particular book is the handbook for the teachers, and it's easy to download. It's free to download, and I highly recommend this book. It's the book I use for most of this lesson and this course. So there's 66 pages, but it's a very important book as well. As I said last week, most of the exams, the first certificate, the advanced and the proficiency from Cambridge, the structures are very similar, but the vocabulary and the questions might be more difficult, and this is a good example today of the proficiency level. So let's begin. If you have a question, please leave your question in the comment section in Facebook. Please say hello, and I can answer your questions at any moment, and I can answer your questions later as well. Soap operas. So here I'll put the questions here as well beside us to continue. Okay, so as you know, 0 is given to us already at the top. We have option A, dispute, option B, argument, option C, dissent, option D, challenge. And I will try to give you the best contexts for each word. I will try to give you as many tips and as much advice as I possibly can for each answer. I hope you can see the text. Maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger, and hopefully that will help a little. In fact, I'll make it a lot bigger, because it's very important that you can see the questions and not so important to see me. Okay, so here we go. And let's begin with the first paragraph. Okay, so the first paragraph was, it is surely beyond dispute, beyond argument, beyond dissent, beyond challenge. Obviously the first answer is A. So it is surely, it is certainly, it is obviously beyond dispute, beyond doubt, that soap opera is the most consistently popular type of television program in the world. A dispute is an argument. You can have a dispute with your friend, you can have a dispute with your neighbor, you can have a dispute with your boss. It's an argument, it's a disagreement, it's a problem. An argument is very more general. People understand an argument. Dissent is typical to give dissent. For example, the teenager is giving dissent, or very typical in sports, the football player was cautioned, received a yellow card, was booked for dissent. And this is when you criticize the referee or when you say some bad words to the referee. This is dissent in the noun. And the verb is more formal. To dissent is to complain or to criticize, I think, or to dispute. But it would be very more formal used. However, in football, it's very typical. A challenge is more international as well. You challenge the decision, you challenge your opinion, you challenge your friend to a game, you challenge somebody. So that's more well known. Okay, option one. It is the subject, and it, I think, is the soap opera. Has succeeded. This is very important because the noun is success and the adjective is successful. But the verb of this family is to succeed. And it's very typical with this structure, succeed in plus the ing. Succeed in winning, succeeded in having, succeeded in contacting, succeeded in making. That's the typical structure, succeed in plus the ing. So the soap opera has succeeded in something the imagination of millions since it first something as a genre back in the 1930s. The word genre is important for pronunciation. It's probably a French word originally, I think, and the pronunciation continues to be in a French way, even in English. So we normally say a genre for this pronunciation of the word, and it's like category of music, category of movie. What is your favorite genre of book? Okay, so we have two options in this one sentence. The options we have are commanding, capturing, carrying, conquering. Commanding, capturing, carrying, conquering, and the context is the imagination of millions. Commanding is very possible. However, the most possible combination with commanding is attention. This problem commands attention. It requires attention. It needs attention. To command your attention is to require your attention. That's a very typical combination, to command your attention. Also, the verb to command is maybe typical in business. You command your team, you're commanding the group, you are responsible, you are in control, and you are directing the team or the group. A commanding victory is a very strong victory, a very convincing victory. So these are the typical context with commanding. Also, a commanding lead. If you are a politician and if there's an election, the politician might have a commanding lead, and this means a very dominating lead. Commanding the imagination is not typical. Not really. It might be understandable, but it's not so fluent. And always in this exam, we're looking for the most appropriate and the most fluent answer. So commanding the attention, yes. Commanding the attention, yes. But commanding the imagination, no. Capturing is obviously with the animal or the hunter. You're capturing an animal. You can capture a picture. You can capture a photograph. You can capture an audience. That's very important in the audience. The program captured a lot of viewers. So that means the program attracted a lot of viewers. And it is very, very common with imagination. Very famous expression, to capture the imagination of the people, to capture the imagination of the public. This means the public fell in love with the television series, or the public fell in love and adored something. If something captures their imagination, people admire the trend, the very recent trend. So it is very typical to capture the imagination. That's very fluent and very good quality English. Carrying the imagination, not really, no. Carrying is more general. We can use carrying in lots of situations. And conquering the imagination, it's logical and it's understandable and maybe it's fine, but definitely the most frequently used combination is capturing the imagination. Okay, so that's definitely, I think, the first answer, capturing the imagination of millions, since the series, first originated, emerged, established, inaugurated as a genre. Okay, since the series first, something as a genre back in the 1930s, originated as a genre, maybe. So it originated as a genre, maybe. So maybe it was earlier, the origin of the series, of the television soap operas, the origin maybe was before this. Maybe. Okay, emerged is very important. To emerge is typical with talent and a person who has ability. So obviously they existed before, but now they are emerging. So if you understand the difference between origin and emerging. So again, a football player maybe is 15, 16 years old and is very talented, very good ability, but the football player only emerges into the public of millions when he's 19 or 20, or she's 19 or 20. So to emerge is to become really popular. So there's a difference between originated and emerging. So for this reason, I feel a little bit more comfortable with the soap opera emerging as a genre, becoming dominant as a genre, becoming more available and well known, because originated probably before that period. So it's just a small difference, but I think emerging is more comfortable. Established as a genre, definitely that could be a possibility, but established is more later. So you emerge at the beginning, but you establish after 5, 10 years. You become part of of the the group, part of the fabric. So there's a very interesting difference between originated, emerged, and established. So as I said, originated is at the very, very beginning. Emerge is the moment when you become popular, which fits very well in this sentence. And established is after 5 or 6 years, or after some time when you're more confident with your product. Okay, and inaugurated is different. To inaugurate is like to open or to start, but we typically inaugurate a museum, you inaugurate a building, you inaugurate an office, and this means to create or to establish an office. So it's a bit different. So for me, the best and appropriate answer is emerged, and I expect a lot of people might have difficulty with that. The word soap alludes to the role originally played by detergent manufacturers who promoted their products during commercial breaks. Okay, so that sentence, there's no option. So the word soap for the hands alludes to, that's very, very good quality English, suggests, it refers to. Most people understand refer to, but here alludes to is more fluent and very advanced as well. Very good quality English, and it's a little more advanced and proficient compared to refers to. So that's important to remember if you want to advance and really have a good level of English and a good score. The role played, that's the typical combination. You play an important role by detergent manufacturers. So detergent is like soap. Detergent is another name for soap for clothes and soap for your hands as well. And a manufacturer is the person or the company that produce and manufacture. Who, so who is the relative pronoun for the substitution for the companies, promoted their products during commercial break. A commercial break is on the television during a program. You have a commercial break, and this is the moment that you see all the advertisements. That's known as a commercial break. Okay, number 3. Soap operas have been something as mindless entertainment With viewers only, something to these programs in order to escape from reality. So the key part here is mindless entertainment. The adjective is mindless entertainment, and this means maybe it's entertainment that does not require attention. It does not require concentration. It's very easy to watch, and you don't challenge your brain, you don't exercise your brain when you are watching this program. That is the comment, mindless entertainment. That is the significance. So in the first sentence, we see have been, and this is the present perfect. So it could be another verb. And the options for 3, we have disregarded, deplored, disapproved, dismissed. This is tricky. With viewers only resorting to these programs in order to escape, applying to, resigning to, adopting to. Again, a little bit tricky. But I think number 3 is more difficult. To disregard is typical for an opinion. If your friend gives you advice, your friend gives you opinion, and you disregard their advice, this means you ignore their opinion and you ignore their advice. Okay, so that's the significance to disregard. Somebody or something, you don't pay attention and you don't care. It's very similar to disrespect. In this situation, disregarded, maybe because the disregard is to ignore or to remove, maybe. Deplore, the verb to deplore is like to hate. You deplore this project. That means you really hate. It's more intense than in hate, and it's more advanced and probably more proficient to deplore. You really criticize and you hate the situation. You deplore the weather. You hate the situation. You hate the weather. Disapprove is typical with parents when they meet your partner. For example, if your parents meet your new boyfriend or your new girlfriend and they disapprove, this means your parents do not like, do not accept, do not approve of your partner. So maybe disapproved as, but not really in this context. It does not fit very well. Dismissed is typical for people. The teacher might dismiss the student, and this means remove the student or tell the student to leave, to dismiss the student. Also in sport, the referee can dismiss the player, to send the player off the pitch, or in the military, the general might dismiss the soldier and tell the soldier to go home or to relax. You're dismissed, you can leave. So they are the most common contexts for dismissed, disapproved, deplored, and disregarded. Remember, regard is very typical with the combination as. You regard Ireland as a beautiful country. So regard is very common with the word as. For this reason, it's a strong possibility. Disregarded as, absolutely, it's possible. I think for this reason, I will select 3A, disregarded as. So people reject the soap opera as mindless entertainment. So very not a good activity to do because it does not benefit your knowledge or your education. With viewers only, resorting to, applying to, resigning to, adopting to. Okay, resorting. This is very typical with the preposition to. The verb is to resort to. For example, you are in a desperate situation and you have no food in your house, so you must resort to porridge. You have only porridge in your house, or cereal in your house only. You have no meat, you have no pasta, you have no bread, you have no rice, so you must resort to porridge for your dinner. This means you must go to. We also say a last resort. That's a very famous expression. So porridge is my last resort. It's my last a possibility. It's my last option to do something. This is my last resort, my last choice, my last option. So it is very typical with the verb to resort to, and this means to behave in a particular way because you are doing something. And this would make sense in this sentence that viewers only resort to these programs, they only go to these programs as a last option, with the sense of a last option to escape from reality. Apply is very typical with the preposition to. Yes, it is very, very typical. Apply to, but in the situation for a job. Apply to a company, apply to university, apply to your country, to enter a country. So it is very typical, apply to, but in this context, it does not make sense. You don't apply to the program to escape reality. No, so not really. Resign is very important. The verb is to resign, and the number one context is a job. If you resign from your job or from your position, this means you quit your job and you quit your position. So, for example, the president has resigned. The pronunciation is important as well, to resign. And it means that you quit your job and you leave your office. However, the second use is very common. For instance, you are resigned to the fact that the weather is very bad in Ireland. So you have accepted the reality. You are resigned to the fact. That's a very fluent structure. You are resigned to the fact, or you are resigned to doing the exam again. That means you have accepted the situation, you have accepted the reality. So in this context, it's not really typical to resign to these programs. No, it does not fit very well, as I said, because it does not make sense from my explanation. Adopt. You normally adapt. So there's two completely different verbs, adopt and adapt. This verb here, adopt, is typical with children. You adopt a child when you take the child into your home. But the other verb, to adapt, is completely different. Adapt is when you react to the situation and you change your behavior to adapt. ADA for apple, but this is ADO for orange. So they're very, very different. But adapt with the A is typical with to adapt to, but it does not make sense anyway. So the best option here, I would say, is resorting to as a last option, because there's no other television, there's no other programs available. So people resort to these programs, they go to these programs to escape reality. For me, 4 is A. Maybe you have the same opinion, maybe you have a different option. We can check the answers at the end. And of course, if you have a comment, you can put the comment in the chat anytime that you want. Number 5. Okay, so let's continue. Number 5 and number 6. The subject matter of soaps, here we are. The subject matter of soaps also great appeal for viewers, since the stories focus on domestic problems they may have experienced themselves. Option 5, catches, holds, bears, brings. Great appeal. So the context is great appeal. Very difficult vocabulary, very advanced, because the verb to appeal is flexible. It's typical in court when you refuse to accept the decision. You appeal the decision. You challenge the decision, number 1. Number 2 is to attract. So this idea appeals to me. This idea is attractive to me. So appealing is the adjective and the significance is attractive. And in this situation, great appeal is the noun and the significance is great interest and attraction. Okay, or attractiveness. So the subject matter is difficult vocabulary also. The subject matter is a more advanced way to say content. The subject matter of the report, the subject matter of the book, all means the content of the book, the content of the report. So the subject matter of the program catches the attention. Normally with catch, we say catch the attention. Remember, capture the imagination. Catches the imagination, maybe. Catches the attention, captures the imagination. So it's a synonym in that situation. But in this situation, great appeal, no, it does not catch great appeal. Holds, very important. Holds is like possesses. For instance, I hold a passport, an Irish passport. That means I possess. Okay, obviously I can hold a bottle, literal hold, but hold also means possess. So you hold the passport, and that means you own the passport. Your holdings are your possessions. So hold great appeal is possible. That means it possesses great attractiveness. It possesses an ability to attract. So that's very, in fact, it's very, very fluent. To hold great appeal is a very typical expression, and it's very good quality to hold great appeal for viewers. Bear is very important also. As you might know, it's more intermediate English. You cannot bear the weather, you cannot bear the traffic, you cannot tolerate, you cannot support. There's many different contexts with the verb to bear, and it also means to carry. For example, to bear a child. This means to carry a child for 9 months. And bears great appeal, maybe carries great appeal, maybe it's understandable, but it's not fluent. It's not common to bear great appeal, not really, but it might be understandable. But this exam looks for the most fluent and the most common and the most comfortable combination. And brings great appeal, maybe, yes, that could be possible. It brings great appeal, it brings great attractiveness for viewers, but not exactly, it does not fit perfectly in this situation. So for me, the best option is holds great appeal. It possesses great appeal. I expect some people might have a problem with that number 5. I think that will be tricky for a lot of people. But for me, the best answer is holds great appeal. For the stories, since has a couple of different meanings. Since is one moment in the past, since 8 o'clock this morning, and it's typical in the present perfect. I have been working since 8 o'clock this morning, one moment in the past. However, the second significance means because or as. So the soap opera has great appeal for viewers because the stories, so that's really key. The significance of since here is because the stories focus on domestic problems permanently, uniformly, perpetually, invariably. So this is tricky for sure because permanently means constantly, and arguably in the soap opera, the stories always focus on domestic problems. So permanently is definitely a good candidate. Uniformly, not really. It does not fit really well here. Uniform is something you wear or something that's the same. So it's understandable, but it's not comfortable. And perpetually, again, I think means forever. And it's more typical in when people die, the perpetual memoriam, so to remember forever. It's not actually very typical perpetually, and invariably is a bit difficult as well, but very fluent. And this means maybe naturally, or yeah, probably the synonym of naturally or obviously. So I have a decision between A and D. I don't know what you think, but for me, I would suggest the best answer for my point of view would be invariably. And I think that's very, very fluent, very, very fluent. Invariably focuses on. That's just my instinct, my ear, and my recognition of what I have read before. So the best way, as you probably know, to prepare for these exercises is to read a lot. You must try to read as much as you can, different sources, different pages, different books, different magazines, different journals. You must try to read as much as you can, and that is a very good way to prepare for these exams. And it's a very good way to improve your English anyway. So reading is really important. Okay, so yes, I think 6 is invariably. Let's continue to number 7 and number 8. So there has been a significant shift. A shift means a change. a significant shift, a significant change in attitudes, with many soaps now moral and social issues. An issue is like a topic or a problem. What is the issue? What is the problem? What is the topic? So there has been a significant change in attitudes, with many soaps now inquiring moral and social attitudes, addressing moral and social attitudes, commenting on moral and social attitudes, or interpreting moral and social attitudes. First, to verb to interpret means to understand or to express, and it fits very well here. So if you interpret the issue, you're understanding and giving your perspective on the social issues and the moral issues. So in this context, it fits very, very well. Inquiring is to ask a question. You are inquiring about information. You are inquiring about the product. You are inquiring about something. So you are asking for a question. You're asking for information. Commenting in relation to vocabulary, yes, but you comment on. So if you're commenting, it's typical, you're commenting on the problem, you're commenting on the issue, you're commenting on the topic. So it almost definitely needs the preposition on. B, the verb to address is really important, because the noun an address is your location. This is your address. This is the location where you live. However, there is a verb to address, and this is very important also and typical for presidents and for politicians or for anybody. You can address a problem, and this means to deal with the problem, to manage the problem, to sort the problem, to fix the problem if you address the problem. The president, he or she might address the people, and this means talk to the people. So for me, this fits very, very well. The soap opera addresses, deals with, talks about, comments on, interprets. So they're all very, very similar, but the best one that fits very well is addresses moral and social issues. It deals with the moral and social issues, in my opinion. Number 8, the characters and situations are complex and ambiguous, providing much food for thought and no easy answers. So symbolized, illustrated, depicted, represented. The characters and situations are complex. So symbolized, maybe. Illustrated, maybe. Illustrated is more for a magazine or a drawing or a sketch, or an artist can illustrate with a painting. So the context with illustrate is more in drawing or painting. This is a soap opera, so it's a little bit different. A symbolize might be an object. The object symbolizes something generally, but they are flexible and you can use them maybe with a soap opera or the characters. Depict, again, is related more with a picture or a painting. Something depicts. You can depict this. So it's like to create the picture. Represented, maybe you represent a company, you represent your family, you represent your friends, you represent your community. To represent, as you know. So here, I'm not sure. I would suggest, yes, I would suggest the best answer probably is represented in the series, because you represent a character. You're not the real character. You're only playing the part of the character. So I think maybe represented might be the most comfortable. So you can see it's a bit more difficult perhaps than the advanced. I think the vocabulary is excellent and the quality is very, very good. So let me check the answers, and we go to the page here for the answers, and we can see, I think, all the full answers. And here we go. So the answers here are, and I've lost my page. Number 1 was capturing the imagination. Okay, so you capture the imagination. Number 2 was emerged as a genre. So since it emerged, it became solidified, it became established. Just before established, it emerged, it appeared. Difficult. Number 3 was dismissed. which is my mistake. I said disregarded as. I was confused between dismissed and disregarded, but the correct answer was dismissed as mindless entertainment that people go to. And 4A was resort to. People resort to as um, a way to escape reality, if you remember the sentence. Number 5 was B, holds the appeal. It contains, it possesses the appeal. And number 6 was invariably, and that was difficult. I had a little risk and a little chance with that option there. So invariably deals with, talks about. Number 7, uniformly. No, sorry. Number 7 is B, addresses. Yeah, so deals with the problem, addresses the situation, addresses the topic. And number 8 is depicted. So I have two mistakes. My mistake is number 8. The correct answer is depicted. Maybe because it's a picture, like the movies. Sometimes we call the movies the pictures. So depicted maybe is connected to the picture, the motion pictures, which is another name for the movies. So that's my mistake. I think lots of people will have a couple of doubts and a couple of errors maybe, but that seems to be the correct answer. And my other mistake was in option 3 when I said disregarded as, but no, it's dismissed as. So let's just check again the text and let's read again for a final time to review and to summarize everything. So one moment. And here we are, part 1. Okay, soap operas. And let's read it again. It is surely beyond dispute that the soap opera is the most consistently popular type of television program in the world. It has succeeded in, sorry, I'm just trying to make this a bit bigger for everybody. It has succeeded in capturing the imagination of millions since it first emerged as a genre back in the 1930s. The word soap alludes to the role originally played by detergent manufacturers who promoted their products during commercial breaks. Soap operas have been dismissed as mindless entertainment, with viewers only resorting to these programs in order to escape from reality. Soaps are often set in friendly, tightly knit. That's very good vocabulary. Very, very good vocabulary. Remember, the verb to knit is to make a jumper, but if it's tightly knit, it's very connected, interconnected. Tightly knit neighborhoods evoking nostalgic feelings in some viewers, since such communities may no longer exist in many areas. The subject matter, the content of soaps also holds great appeal for viewers since the stories invariably focus on domestic problems they may have experienced themselves. Number 7, there has been a significant shift, change, move in attitudes, with many soaps now addressing moral and social issues. The characters and situations depicted are complex and ambiguous, providing much food for thought and no easy answers. That's a very good expression as well. Food for thought means content and things for you to think on and to think about. So if you have food for thought, this means that you have a lot of things to think about. And that is the end of that exercise. So very, very interesting, very challenging. There's very little room for error. I made 2 mistakes and it's not good because I want to really do my best and to have a better mark. And I'm a fluent English speaker, so it's tricky. But practice, and you're probably familiar with this type of exercise anyway from the advanced and from the first certificate if you have already done those exams. As you know, the next part is part 2, and next week we will do this particular exercise next week. So now for your homework, if you want to take a picture of this, go ahead and take the picture, and then you can try this exercise yourself at home, and I will give you the answers and I will give you my opinion and advice next week in relation to this particular exercise. Again, you have no options. For part 2, you have no options. You must select the correct word from your memory and from your vocabulary, and it's very difficult. Lots of people find this exercise the most difficult from the use of English. However, I enjoy it, and I think that the vocabulary and the words that are generally used in the spaces are grammatical. For example, it could be an article, indefinite article, definite article. It could be a preposition. It could also be a preposition from a phrasal verb. It could be an auxiliary verb, be, do, have. It could be an expression. It could be a pronoun, an object pronoun, a subject pronoun. It could be a relative pronoun, which, who, that. They are the general options that we have to do for this part 2. But it's very interesting, and next week I will explain this part. Today was just part 1. And in fact, I have another exercise here that we might look at. And let's open this exercise. And I will show you the exercise. I have a second exercise in relation to part 1. Again, you can do this for homework if you wish. If you don't want to do this now, you can easily do this for homework, no problem. That's my little picture and the little image to make the screen a little bit prettier and nicer. So you can do this exercise for homework if you wish, or we can try to do this also very quickly now, and I think that might be a good idea. But if you have a question, I can answer your questions now in the Facebook chat. So just give me one moment and I look at here to see any comments that you have. And I don't see any comments, so you're welcome to leave a comment if you wish. Let's try the exercise. So again, it's a typical article from a book, article from a magazine, newspaper, or journal, and the topic is the US bicentennial. Difficult. I think a bicentennial is every 200 years. So let's begin. I hope the text is clear. I hope you can read the text. It's a little small, but I think it's good in this format to continue. Such was the national mood in early 1976 that plans for a mammoth celebration of the bicentennial in Philadelphia had been quietly dropped, quit, renounced, desisted. But when the 4th of July 1976 came round, things did not seem so gloomy, for that matter, by the way, whatsoever, after all. But when the 4th of, so up and down the country, they celebrated. There were parades, there were speeches, there were picnics, there were fireworks. The flag waved everywhere, and everywhere people something their brains for permanently useful schemes. So people wrenched their brains for permanently useful schemes, strained their brains, racked their brains, sprained their brains, such as the restoration of old buildings or the opening of new parks, with which to mark the bicentennial, and by a something of real genius, by a blow of real genius, a stroke of real genius, a blast of real genius, a stamp of real genius. The last great sailing ships of the world were called to New York Harbor, a summer parade of dizzy and clouds of white canvas, dizzy spires, dizzy rods, dizzy posts, dizzy masts, to express by their beauty some of the faith in themselves, their past and their future, which the American people were renewing. The whole affair was exactly the tonic for the national that was needed: morale, temper, frame, complexion. For me, this is clearly different compared to the previous exercise. I think the previous exercise was easier. This one is more fluent, and this is challenging. So very quickly, I can explain to you the context and I can probably give you the answers, and you probably have tried already to guess, and maybe you have the right answer already. So, such was the mood is typical connected with the word that. Such was the weather that I went to the beach. Such was the temperature that I needed to wear a coat. That's a very important structure, very difficult to teach you now, but that's the structure. Such Was the weather, such was the day, that. Okay, mammoth means enormous, gigantic, very big celebration. Had been quietly, so this is the past perfect. So the celebration, so the topic is the plans for celebration. Had been dropped, had been quit, had been renounced, has been desist. So the topic, the subject are the plans. And the plans had been is the passive. And the typical answer, the best answer is maybe to drop. You drop your plans. This means to cancel your plans. Quit your plans? Not really. You don't really quit your plans. No, you cancel and postpone your plans, or you drop your plans. You cancel your plans or drop your plans. So drop is the best answer, I think. Renounce is your title or your job, like to resign. If you renounce your position, you are giving up or you're quitting your job. So to renounce is typical for a title or a job. Quit is more general. Quit your job, quit smoking, quit eating sugar. And desist, I think, is more like resist. So desist is a bit difficult as well. But the best answer, I think, is dropped. But when the 4th of July came round, that's a phrasal verb to appear. It arrived when it came round. A person can also come round when they change their opinion. So he or she finally came round to my point of view. Or when the person is feeling unconscious, they finally come round and they feel better. So it's a really important combination. Things did not seem so gloomy. Gloomy means depressing. The weather is very gloomy, very depressing, very dark, very grey, very sad. And the best answer here is they did not seem depressing, for that matter, by the way, whatsoever. After all, whatsoever is very possible, but the best answer is after all, in the end. In the end, after all. They're very difficult, but the best answer, I think, is D. So, up and down the country, that's a very good expression as well, meaning in every part of the country, up and down the country, across the country, in every corner of the country, everywhere, people, they celebrated. There were parades, there were speeches, and there were picnics, and there were fireworks, so lots of celebration for the bicentennial. The flag waved everywhere, and everywhere, people something their brains. Now, wrench. A wrench is a tool. When you fix a bicycle, you need a wrench. But it's also metaphorical, like a problem. It's a wrench. It's a wrench in the project. It's a problem, causing a problem. And it's in that particular context. Strain, you can strain a muscle. Before you pull the muscle, you strain the muscle. That means to damage a little, but not severely. Relationships can be strained, damaged a little because of the pressure, but not broken. Strained relationships. You can strain to see. So in St. Patrick's Day parade, it's difficult to see because there's lots of people, and you're straining to see. You're moving your body in a stretch, and pressure on your body. You're straining to see. Strain your brain, maybe it's understandable, but it's not super fluent. Rack. I don't know how to explain this expression to you, but this is a very fluent expression. To rack your brain is incredibly common, and it means you're moving your brain. A rack is typical in the bathroom. You have a rack and you put the towel on the rack. We say a towel rack. So to rack somebody is to put somebody, when you torture or punish that person, they're putting the person on the rack, and they're going to maybe pull the body and torture the body. So if the person is on the rack, this means they're in a very difficult situation and they're being tortured and being destroyed and punished and ruined and damaged. That's the significance. You are on the rack because you're in a position that people can torture you. But to rack your brain is a very famous expression, and it means really to search your brain very, very hard. Maybe like shake, you're racking your brain. It's a very famous expression, difficult to explain, but it really means that you're looking for the answer. You're racking your brain. Sprain is very typical with your ankle. If you sprain your ankle, you twist your ankle, it's damage, but it's not broken and it's not very, very serious. You just strain your ankle. You can also strain the water. This means to remove the water from the bowl. It's very similar to drain. So there's lots and lots of detail here. Sprain, strain, rack. Very, very difficult. But the best answer is C, to rack your brain. Number for permanently useful schemes, such as the restoration of old buildings or the opening of new parks with which to mark the bicentennial. And by something of real genius. Again, this is super fluent, really proficiency, and it's difficult. If you know this, fantastic. A blow of real genius. Blow is usually negative. If you have a blow, it's an impact and it's negative, but genius is really positive. A blast is an explosion, and this is logical, an explosion of real genius. So a moment of eureka. It's a blast of genius, maybe. Stamp is like a signal or a sign. If you have a stamp of real genius, that's possible, and it means it's a sign of really good intelligence. But the verb is to stroke. Okay, to stroke the cat. If you stroke the cat, it's like to rub the cat. Stroke of a pen. Okay, but the expression in English is a stroke of genius. And that means maybe the painter, it maybe originates from the artist. It's a stroke of genius. It's gorgeous, it's beautiful, it's spectacular. It's very difficult to do. It's a stroke of genius. That's the expression. It means it's something amazing. The last great ship of the worlds were called to New York Harbor. A summer parade of dizzy. If you're feeling dizzy, you're not feeling good. Before you faint, you have a headache and you're feeling dizzy. A summer parade of dizzy spires, dizzy rods, dizzy masts, dizzy posts, and clouds of white canvas. So because they are sailing ships, that's the only connection I can make here. And dizzy, we normally say dizzy heights. We normally say dizzy heights because it's very high and you feel uncomfortable because you're maybe afraid of heights because they're dizzy heights. So in this situation, because it's a sailing ship, a spire is not related to a ship. A rod is related to fishing. A post is related to maybe a ship, but a mast. Specifically, the name of the pole on the ship is a mast. Therefore, very tall and very high masts is the correct answer here. Dizzy masts. So number 5 is D. This is very difficult. This exercise is very, very difficult, but it's good to show you. I'm very happy to show you because this is the level of fluent, really fluent English. To express by their beauty some of the faith in themselves, their past and their future, which the American people were renewing. The whole affair, the whole issue, the whole topic, the whole party was exactly the tonic, the drink, the perfect drink to make you feel good. It's the tonic, the medicine for the national morale, the national temper, frame, complexion that was needed. The complexion of the nation, maybe. The frame, maybe. Morale, the national morale, the mood of the country. So number 6 is A. Interesting, very difficult, and I'm very, very happy to show you this exercise because it's very challenging, but very fluent. So that's another type of exercise. Sorry, it's the same type, but another exercise. And there's only 6 questions, but in the official exam, I think you have 8. Excellent. That is everything for today. Remember, next week we will look at part 2, and the exercise is different, and it will be very good. So I hope you can join me next week and you are preparing for the exam, hopefully, or you have an interest in reaching proficiency level, and hopefully you can join me next week and everybody else who might want to join, or if you want to share it with your friend or tell your friend and invite your friend to come, that would be fantastic as well to watch this lesson. You're welcome to participate. Leave a message, leave a comment to contact me with a question, and I can answer anything that you have. You know my schedule is on my Facebook page. You can see all my lessons and my plans, and I'm giving 23 lessons on Facebook Live this week. So it's a huge amount of work, a huge amount of numbers, and I'm very happy to do it for free and for the public. Everything is free, but if you are enjoying my lessons, if you are staying with my lessons, if you are benefiting from my lessons, I would ask you to consider making a subscription to me. You can stop anytime you want, you can cancel anytime you want, but basically to donate or to subscribe to me every month with a particular quantity of donation. All the information is here. For example, you can connect your bank to my bank, and as I said, you can stop whenever you want, or you can do it through PayPal as well. Any figure that you want, €1 per month, €2 per month, 5, 10, 20, whatever you wish. This will support me a lot, and it will help me to cover my expenses, and it will help me to grow, because I really want to continue and I really want to grow this project, and I'm very excited about doing it with the potential on the internet, and I do need your support. So I'm asking if you can consider this option for me, and hopefully that will be helpful for me. Okay. Again, all the information is on my Facebook post anyway. You can go find the link on my Facebook post to bring you to the PayPal option. Okay, great. Fantastic. Thank you so much, and I hope that you have a very good day. Finally, I just will check if you have any questions, any comments, any doubts. I don't see any comments. And say thank you, everyone. And hopefully I can spell that correctly. And that is almost correct. And again, thank you. So have a very good day. Enjoy your afternoon. Thank you for your attention, and have a great day.